everyone. If anyone is not able to hear me or see my screen, then please either speak or put a message. Okay. So today is the I would say the demo class or the introduction class for the Azure DevOps course actually. Okay, and today our focus is going to be understand what we are going to learn throughout this training and what we are going to explore. So before going into that content and what we are going to learn, I would like to introduce about myself. So here is my profile, guys. So I have more than 14 years of experience working in IT operations, support, and solution architecting. Most of my work is of the infrastructure administration part, and DevOps is also one of it. And if we'll go through the certifications, then I have completed the certifications or I have done the certifications as AZ104, 305, 700, 500, 400, and Terraform HashiCorp certified as well. So as you can see, most of these certifications are belong to Azure. So mostly my work, whatever the work I have done till now, or whatever the training I have given, it's basically belong to the Azure and Microsoft technology oriented. So in this a year of my experience, I have conducted many trainings. I have given online and offline training both, and this is how it is going on. So this is just a brief about my experience, which I have just put on a slide. Now I'll come back to the content of the course. I'll just closing this. Now let's move to the content of this course, like what we are going to learn in this course. So this is what we are going to learn into this course. Okay, so before we go and I explain like why we are learning these contents, I would like to discuss something, or I would like to explain something like what is DevOps, how the DevOps comes into the picture, and where we are ourselves in the DevOps journey, and what we should learn, and what is the role of each individual. Okay, so I'll go to my whiteboard first, and first we'll discuss some concepts, and then we will come back to the content so that we will be able to understand the content in more depth. Okay, so that's my whiteboard, and I'm just going to open. Okay, so the journey basically starts in every organization, in every IT organization, I would say. Okay, we need to understand one thing, every kind of whatever we do, it's all about the development and developing an application. So like today we have multiple options. Everything is basically is running. Everything is basically running on an application. We do from day to day work, from your enterprise work. And when I say enterprise, I am basically talking about the work which we do in a company as a job. Okay, so whether it is our personal work, or whether it is an enterprise work, everything is basically happen over a application. Okay, whether it is our attendance, whether it is our meetings, whether it is our personal payment, expense track, anything, everything in our life when it comes to the IT, then we do or we use some sort of application. So the journey of the IT also starts with the application development. So we are going to develop. I mean, obviously, we are not going to do the development part, but development is an essential part, and it is one of the beginning part of the organization. So any IT service company where you will go, they have their own set of application, whether they have developed that application within their own company, or they have asked someone else to develop their applications. Once the application development completes, then we have other stages as well. So when it means first part, or the any organization, or the first part of the product is to develop an application. Once the application development completes, then the next stage is to deploy the application, and then manage the application, and then support the application. Because if the application is developed, then there are other options, other features of the application we need to explore. We cannot provide full access to a lot of people. We cannot implement application on anywhere. So we have lot of restrictions, we have lot of understanding, and we have lot of customized configurations we need to follow after the application development completes. So today I'm just taking an example of one application, and then I'm going to show you, like, once that application development completes, okay, then what are the next stages we need to follow. And that is where we are going to learn what is the DevOps journey throughout. Okay, so first thing we need to understand, DevOps is whether it is Azure DevOps, or open source DevOps, or whatever the DevOps we are talking about. DevOps is not a set of tool, and as of now, what I need you guys from you, like, forget about the DevOps. Okay, do not think about the DevOps as of now. Okay, let's go through the simple software development life cycle. If you have heard this word, then it's better. Otherwise, I would request to spend some time on reading about software development lifecycle. Okay, we are going to take an example, and then we are going to understand it. Okay, so first thing, let's understand the application infrastructure. What is application? Okay, and then we will come to the development part, and then we'll see how it is going to be a DevOps. Okay, so when I say, for example, let's take a simple example of an Instagram. Instagram is a application which is basically used by a lot of people. Okay, so just think of Instagram as an application, and you're working in an organization which is going to develop Instagram application. Okay, so Instagram is just an application for us. Okay, so every application, no matter which application, but 99% of the application, okay, has two versions. Every application is mostly going to have a two version. One is server version, and another is client version. Yeah. So Instagram, there is an application called Instagram, and we have server version of the Instagram application and the client version of the application. Now, what is first? Let's understand the client version. Client version of the application is actually nothing. It is just the same application which we get on the mobile. So if you will open, if you'll on your mobile, if you'll go to the Play Store, or if you'll go to the App Store, and you simply install the, type the Instagram, and whatever the application comes, that version of the application, sorry, so that version of the application is called client version. Okay, so client version application, how to identify a client version application? So client version of application or app runs on client operating system. So that's the simple definition, or that's the simple identification of any client version application. So any application which is basically run on a client operating system is going to be called as a client version of that application. So if I go into the operating system, then we have client operating system, and what are the other we have Windows 10, Windows 11, our mobile Android phone, Android 10. Okay, then iOS, for example, 16 or 17, I don't know exact version, but it's running somewhere around 1780. Then Ubuntu desktop. Okay, Red Hat, Linux, desktop. So these are some famous operating system which we call it as a client operating system. So you can see here we have Windows 11, Windows 10, Android, and then iOS, Ubuntu. We have Ubuntu and Windows, Android. Okay. So we have multiple client operating system, and it is not very difficult to understand about the client operating system. The client version of the application. We can simply understand. Okay, if there is any application which is running on a client operating system, we are simply going to call it as a client version. Then you have downloaded your Instagram application, which is a client version on your mobile or on your laptop, right? Or after that, you simply go and enter your details like your first name, last name, whatever the details you would like to enter, and then you create a profile of your Instagram application, right? Once you create a profile, then what is going to happen? Once you create your profile, and once you, let's say, you have the option to upload your videos, upload your photos, upload your text, right? These are the features of the client application of the Instagram. So once you create, so let's take it like this. So once you download it, and then you simply enter your name, okay, your date of birth, and then you simply go. Once it's you go, and then once you are going to upload your pics, then videos and audios, or maybe texts, right? These are basically we are going to install it our. Yeah, these are the features, okay, and this is something my name and date of birth. So just imagine, let's say you installed on Instagram application on your one mobile, and you have entered your ID password, you have registered yourself with the Instagram, and then you have uploaded some pics and videos and audios, and after some time, maybe a month or 2 months or maybe any time, okay, after some time your mobile gets stolen, or your mobile gets breakdown, right? Your mobile is not working anymore. So in that case, you are going to purchase a new mobile, or you are going to use a new mobile. When you are going to use a new mobile, so after getting a new mobile, all you need to do, you simply need to download the client version of the Instagram application, and you simply need to log in into that application. First thing, you do not need to register yourself. That's the point number one. Second point, what the moment you are going to enter your credentials, like whatever the ID and password you have used at the time of registration, once you enter your credentials, you will get the access of your pics, videos, audios, whatever you have uploaded on the Instagram. You are going to get access of all of it. There is nothing, nothing is going anywhere, okay? So how do you get the access of your pics, videos, and audios and text? Even the device gets changed, okay? So that answer is basically belong to this application, which is called server version of the application. Server version. So the answer belongs to the server version of that application. So what happens? You downloaded your client application, you registered yourself. The moment you registered yourself, Instagram is the server version of the application, and both are interconnected, because you cannot have a client operating system without a server operating. Sorry, you cannot have a client application without have a server version of the application. So the moment you anybody everybody is keep using, okay, so Instagram is basically in the server application. What we are going to do, we are going to mention like profiles. In the profile section, they are going to save all the people's ID, password, everything. Then in the server operating system, they have one section with the pics, and they are saving all the pics, all the pics uploaded by all the particular, all the people around the world on their client operating system. In the similar way, they can have a videos as well. similarly. Okay, and then they have also mapped the profiles with the actual pics and with the actual videos, so that if anybody is going to log in to the any other device, okay, by using the same credential, they are going to get the pics, videos and audios and text whatever they have uploaded. So this is how basically the client application works with the server application. And this is server version of the application is the reason we get all our details, we get all our contents whatever we have uploaded, again and again, no matter how many mobiles we are going to use or how many client device we are going to use. We can get the same thing on our laptop as well, we can get the same thing on our tab, mobile, or any other client or device. So every application has two versions, server version and the client version. Client version is what basically for the end user. So if I'm an end user, then it is going to be a client version. Okay, in the client version there are two versions. Okay, measurely, okay, there are n number of explanation for all these things, but I'm just simply giving you the relevant one, which is basically used in terms of enterprises. So in the client operating system we have two options. And what is the two options? One is you are going to have a client app. You are going to have a client app, right? And another, you are going to have a web app. So what is client app and what is web app? So client app is something which you simply go ahead and download. So for example, again, I'm taking an example of mobile. In your mobile, let's say you simply go to the Play Store or App Store and you download the Instagram app. There is a dedicated app for the Instagram and you can use it. But let's say if you don't want to use the app, I don't want to install any app. I would like to only access the Instagram over my browser. So even in your mobile or the same thing will goes with the tab or the laptop, right? You can simply open a web browser, which is either a Google Chrome or a Internet Microsoft Edge, whatever, or Firefox, whatever the web browser you have, and you can simply open your application on that Google Chrome, and you enter your ID and password, and you will get the same content there as well. So that version basically is called web application. So in the client version, we have two options in the client app and the web app. Same goes with our internet banking as well. We have multiple app. We have our dedicated application for our internet banking, but at the same time, we also have the option to log in via internet browser, or it's simply whether it is Chrome, Firefox, Opera, whatever the Safari, whatever the browser you would like to use, it's up to you. But any application, if you are open, if you're going to open it over the browser, then that is basically called web app, and some people also call it as a website. So website is basically a kind of web application. So either you can web app or you can call it a web site. Even for our we have famous application, there is a WhatsApp. So on your laptop also, you can simply type web.whatsapp.com, it will open the same WhatsApp. Okay, and you can also download a application, dedicated application for that. So that is how the client application is segregated. Now coming back to the server application, so server application has again many categories. We have server application with the database, we have server application with the a web hosting platform, we have server application which is hosting another application. That is again, so we'll discuss about that part later in our two, because this is the part where we are going to focus. Okay, now coming back to so this client version is completed. Now coming back to the server version. So in the same way, we are going to install our client application. We need a client operating system. We need a device with a client operating system, whether it is our laptop or a mobile. The same way, we need to install the server app. We need a server operating system. We need a server operating a device with the server operating system. And what are those server operating system? We have again Windows 2016, Windows 2019 or 2022 or 2025. As of now, the latest one is 2025. We have Ubuntu server 22, 24, sorry, 24 version. Then we have Red Hat Linux version 8, 9, and 10, right? And then we can have a Mac OS. Okay, basically it is from the Microsoft. So now you see, we need to install a server version application. We need a server operating system, and that is called Windows. These are the some examples of the server operating system. And what are the devices? So for the client application, we are going to have a client device. So I can mention like client devices are mobile, personal, laptop, whatever you can call it, tab, right? Or web browser. I can also mention it because then if I coming back to my server operating system, then I need a device. So server devices are virtual machines with server OS. Okay, then we can have a physical servers. Then we have Docker. Then we have AKS, EKS, GKE. Okay, and that's it. As of now. So now you see, to install a server operating system, we need a server device. And then only on these devices, we are going to install the server version of the application. The same way, to install the client operating system, we need a client device. And then on that operating system, we are going to install our client application. So these are the different server devices with the server operating system. Even we are going to have a virtual machine or physical server, but on the top of physical server we need to install any server application. On the top of Docker we need to install a server operating system. AKS stands for Azure Kubernetes Services. EKS stands for Elastic Kubernetes Services, like basically it's an Amazon one. GK stands for Google Kubernetes Engine. Okay, so these are the different server devices where we are going to install our server operating system. And once we install our server operating system, then we are going to install the server version of the application. So this is the application categorization which I just wanted to explain to you guys. So till this point, guys, are we clear like how the application works? Okay, so I'm just taking silence as we are getting everything. Now, coming back to the next point which we would like to discuss after getting this discussion, I'm going into the next power cut. Okay, guys, we just need to wait. There is a power cut at my location, so I'm just waiting for power to come up so that I have lost the access of my monitor.
Yeah, hi Manish. Good morning, Shravan here. Uh,
Yeah, Shravan.
I had a quick question. In this one, we need, I have seen the content, course content.
Mm.
They haven't provided anything like Docker or Kubernetes. Will you be elaborating on it as well?
Yeah, so why we have not provided, I'll just going to explain to you. That is we in this session I'm going to tell you like how the course content is designed and why we do not have the Docker and the AKS.
Okay.
Come on, what happened to this power? Yeah.
Currently in the market, do we have openings for the DevOps? Manish?
Yeah, am I audible, guys?
Yes, Manish, you're audible.
Hello?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, hello, am I audible? Yeah, I'm not able to hear you guys. What happened? Yeah, Shravan, are you? Hello?
Yeah, Manish, I can hear you. You're audible to
Okay,
me.
actually I was not able to hear you. Yeah, you were asking something?
Like currently, do we have openings for the DevOps in the market? Like,
Yes, we have always opening for the DevOps in the market. There is, there is always a demand of the DevOps administrator or the DevOps engineer in the market.
okay, got it.
Yeah. So, okay, guys, now I'm just going to give me a minute. Okay, so this is the diagram which we are basically going to discuss again, and the same example I'm discussing. Is my screen visible, guys? Sorry,
No, it's on. It's on now.
is it visible? Okay.
Yeah.
So, see, the same thing which I was actually discussing, the Instagram application. So we are just going to understand like how the development and how the after development, what are the cycles basically we need to go through. Okay, so here you can see first part is about the business discussion, okay, and the Instagram app development. So again, I'm taking an example. Like let's say I'm working for an organization which is going to develop an application for Instagram. Okay, so my let's say I'm working in an organization and that organization has decided like let's go ahead and develop an Instagram application. So that is again the first start or the start point of any application development or any application planning always starts with the business discussion. We need to discuss with the business people like okay, what are the features you want into the application, how we are going to do the which language or programming language we are going to do the installation, how many what are the different features I'm going to have it. So for example, many applications right now in the our Instagram application, you can see we have options for photos, videos, and profile and other options. Okay, so these features are basically decided the at the very first level, which is called the business discussion, and we are also calling it as a preliminary investigation. So once you will go through about the software development life cycle, you will come to know about it. Okay, so let's say that business has given us the instruction like, okay, please guys create a infrastructure, create a Instagram application, and you are going to have these many installations. So for this example, as of now, let's say my first version of the application is the business has told me to have features like users should be able to upload their photos, users should be able to upload their videos, and then there is a profile section, and profile is again nothing, it's basically the information about your registration, your credentials. Okay, so we are getting two options here, like photos, videos, and profiles options here, right? So this is my version one. So at this stage I'm going to decide like when or I'm going to use Python, Java, C++, C sharp, PHP. These are the programming languages. So we are not the developers. The first thing, DevOps engineers are not the developers. If you are, it is a good thing. But even if you are not, then it's not a requirement, right? So if anybody is from a development background, it is a well and good option. But even if you're not from the development background, it is absolutely fine, because the development is going to have a different cycle. So development is going to have a separately. After the development, the deployment is going to have a different cycle. So that is why I'm saying, like, let's say inside first we have a discussion with the business, and on a decision has been finalized, like, okay, we are going into the development of the Instagram application. Then we selected the team of the developers, and we have divided the work to multiple developers. So for example, developer one is developing or writing the code for photos. The developer two is writing the code for uploading the videos and watching the videos, and the developer three is writing the code for mapping the profile or storing the profile. All these things are basically done by the different developers. So now see here, all the different developers are doing and writing their code on their own virtual machine, on their own machine, right? So obviously we cannot, we need a mechanism, like, or we need somewhere, like, because I cannot take this piece of code and say, okay, boss, my Instagram is ready. I cannot say this piece of code, I can say my application is ready. No, if I look from the application perspective, the code which is developed by developer 1, 2, and 3, all these codes are basically combinedly are called the code for my Instagram application, and that is what we are calling it as a source code. So whenever we are we have multiple developers are writing their code on their own system, on their own machine. That's not an issue. But once they keep their, so for what exactly what I told them, like, okay, Mr. Developer 1 and Developer 2 and Developer 3, once you are done with your coding and you can do your internal testing and everything, once you are confirmed and once you are satisfied, like, okay, your part of the coding is done, then you simply put it into a common place. So that, and that common place is called repository. Repository is just, you just think of repository as a common folder for all the developers. So developer one has done the development, and after that he puts the code into the repository. Developer 2 has done the development, he puts the code into the repository. Developer 3 also done the same thing. So now in this way, I have all my codes at one place, and that all the codes I'm calling it as a source code. That's the thing we need to understand. So this is my source code version 1. You can see, so source code version 1 means this entire set of code. No matter which language they have written, I'm not going to bother about it as of now, because I'm not a developer. Okay, it's up to but yes, it's not something like developer 1 can use the Python and developer 2 can use the Java. Of course, there must be some sort of unanimity at the time of development, but we are not learning the development here, so that is why I'm not going into the detail of the development part. So the journey starts, or the DevOps journey basically starts from the source code. I mean, once the first development or the first phase of the development completes, and all the developers have kept their source code, or the technical term is commit their source code into the repository. From this part, basically, the journey of a DevOps admin starts, right? So any DevOps admin is going to start the journey from this part. So what we need a source code first. For any application, we need a source code. That's it. Now the source code is here. Now the next challenge is, once I have the source code. So for example, let's say Python. So developer one has write some code in the Python, developer two and developer three, all of them have written their code into the Python, and the Python code is collectively combined in my this source code version, which is fine. But do I am I supposed to give this Python code to run the application? Absolutely no. Because if I give you, for example, if I give the source code to any developer, like, boss, this is the source code for my Instagram application, you go and run it. So that if that person is a developer, that person can run it. But imagine if the person is not a developer or not a technical person, would he or she be able to execute that code? No. Why? Because Source code is something for which you need a knowledge, and you cannot use the source code to execute the or to run the application. Sorry. So you cannot use the source code or to execute or run the application. Plus, if you have 100 users, then you are not supposed to give your source code to 100 users. Otherwise, they will make any changes into your source code, and your application is not going to work as you have expected or as you are expecting. So what you need to do, you need to convert your source code into an executable form of source code. So basically, conversion is important here. So I get my source code in all written in Python. Just I'm taking an example, all written in Python. Now I'm going to convert my source code into a executable form of the source code, which means I'm going to convert into a executable form. And when I say executable form, I'm talking about the for example .exe. On your laptop you must have installed multiple applications which is just given to you as a .exe. Even you download any application from the browser from the internet, you will download it as a either .exe or .msi or .rpm. There are multiple extensions of the build course. So the conversion of your raw source code into a executable form is basically called a build process, which means if technically it is called a build process. So I have a source code written. So for example, I have 10,000 lines of the source code written in Python. If I am going to convert that 10,000 lines of Python code into a executable form, and when I say executable form, it means I am expecting this to be run on our server or client operating system, then it is called a build process. So journey starts from here. Developers done their development, they put the code into the repository. From repository, we are as a DevOps admin, we are going to take the source code and convert it into the executable form of the application. So once the executable form of the application is converted, then next, what next? So now I have a executable form, which means, for example, Instagram.exe application. I have created this. At this stage, I have created my Instagram.exe application. Now I need, once you created your application, so of course you are going to need a environment. I mean, you are going to need a device. Like, where are you going to deploy that install application? Otherwise, let's say if there is no mobile in the world, let's say there is no laptop in the world, then no matter which application you are going to develop, you won't be able to run that. So we need a hardware and we need a device with a dedicated or with a suitable operating system to run that application. So in the same way, again, I'm going back to my this particular diagram here. So we have developed the server version of the application. Now we need a server device where we have these any of these operating systems are working there. Okay, so if I'll come back here, so to choose or to select the which device we are going to use, and since we are talking about the Azure DevOps, so I have mentioned the four major devices, or the four major platforms where I'm going to install my server version of the application. So you can see we have virtual machines. VM stands for virtual machine. Then in the Azure we have Azure App Service, then Docker and the AKS. So these are the four major platforms where I am supposed to deploy my server version of the application. And all these Azure App Service, AKS, Docker, and VM, all these are the devices where I must have a server operating system. So I'm going to install I'm going to install a server operating system, any of these things. So the next stage is like basically selection of your target environment, like where I'm going to install my server operating system. That is called release pipeline. So this is called build, is basically called CI, and we'll discuss about like the CI and CD later. But I'm just simply telling you, CI is basically called build, where I convert my source code into the executable form of the application. And once the executable form of application I have gathered, then I'm going to put that executable form of application here, and then I'm going to select which target environment where I am going to install my application. And that pipeline is called, uh, it's not a pipeline, basically it's just a, you know block in the pipeline. So basically we are calling it as a deployment pipeline, or you can call it as a release pipeline. Okay, and once your application is installed, so you can see here Instagram app server version of the app, right? So I, and for example here I have taken the virtual machine, so Instagram server, I'm calling it as a Instagram server. And in the Instagram server I have installed the server version of the application. And then I have multiple client version of the application which is installed either on mobile, tab and laptop, and all these are connected to the server version of the application. So that if any of these devices, if any a person is going to log in into these devices, their information will be captured and gathered by the Instagram server. So that is how we need to, this basically the cycle of the Instagram, and this is just the basic cycle I'm telling you guys. I don't want to get into the lot of complexities as of now, because in DevOps journey we really need to understand the simplicity or the, the plain structure of the plain logical structure of the application deployment. Because DevOps is a, framework or a platform like where lot of complexities are there. If you will go and open the internet and if you'll look into the DevOps, how, what are the things to learn into the DevOps, you will end up with n number of complex technologies, and you will find yourself lost. And this is why, and why I'm saying this, because I have learned it in a very hard way. So that is why I simplified things first. Because if you have this structure clear, then of course you are going to learn a number of things, but always remember the basic remains the same. First thing, development is going to happen. Once the development is completed, then all the developers are supposed to put their code into the repository. Once the code is put into the repository, then the next job is to convert the source code into the executable form of application. Once that process is done, then of course to install the executable form of application, we need to select the target environment, whether I'm going to use the AKS or Docker or Azure App Service or a virtual machine. Once I selected the target, then I simply need to install my application on that target. And now what is the benefit of doing this cycle? So as of now you can see I have developed my only version 1. Tomorrow I need to go into the version 2, or maybe, so in the Instagram application version 2 I have added one more feature which is called audio. So again I have not added, it is added by the developers. The business said, okay, in my first version of the application I have the features to upload photos and videos, and gather the information about the profile. But in the next version of my application I also want to add the feature of uploading audios. So again my developers are going to write the code for that, and once they have write the code for the audio, they are again going to dump it here as a source code of the version. Once I have the source code of my version 2, then again the same cycle will follow. I need to convert the source code of version 2 in the executable form, and then again I need to choose if I can keep the same target environment or I can choose the different target environment. And again I can do the installation. And all once the installation is completed, then of course the clients are going to get their update from the server version of their application. And this is how it works. Tomorrow again a new feature will come. The developers simply need to develop the code, and they need to put it into the repository. Once the code is inside the repository, all these things will automatically happening. And that is what we have the DevOps pipeline. When we why we because right now if I look into this, I can do manually all these things. There is no problem, I can do all these things manually as well. I can simply create every time the new source code I have here, I can create a build every time I have the build. I can deploy my target, I can do all these things manually as well. But what DevOps is making sure, DevOps is saying like, no, you do not need to do it manually. You can deploy the multiple tools to do all these things, and all these things are going to happen automatically. All you need to commit a new source code here. The version 3 is going to be here, I'm simply going to put version 3 here, and all this cycle is going to run automatically. And that is why it is called pipeline, which means you just put the things at the beginning of the pipe, and then all these things will automatically keep passing through the end of the pipeline. So this is basically called the DevOps pipeline or the DevOps journey in a very simple and plain format. So till this point, do we have any question? How the software development happening? Okay. Now coming to the, now we understood the basics of the software development, like how it is going to happen. Now it's time to understand how it is going to happen by using the multiple or different tools of the DevOps. So this is my another diagram. So this is the DevOps. So when we come to the DevOps, as of now, I'm simply going to tell you in the DevOps world, we have two DevOps as of now. Of course, we have multiple DevOps, but for the training purpose, I'm only going to keep it in the open source DevOps and the Azure DevOps. Okay, now let's understand the open source DevOps. So again, the same example, we have Instagram application. First job is to write the source code. Once the source code is written, I need, multiple developers are involved. I need to combine all the source code into one place. And that place is, we are calling it as a repository. And to maintain the repository, because if multiple people are going to keep the multiple version of the source code, then I need a tool, or I need a mechanism to maintain the different version of my application, to maintain the different commits. I mean, let's say developer 1 has given, developer 2 has committed, developer 3 has put. So all these things are going to be maintained inside the repository. So to maintain the clean copy of my source code, the up to dated copy of my source code, I need a repository. And there is a n number of tools to maintain, that is called source code version system. So we have Git, we have GitHub, we have Azure Repo, we have Bitbucket, we have n number of tools as well to maintain the repository. All the work of these tools are nothing. They are simply going to be used to maintain the multiple version of my source code, to maintain the permission of my source code, to maintain the accessibility of my source code. So simply these tools are working at the repository level, nothing else. Then in the DevOps journey, we have learned once the source code is in the repository, we are going to convert it into the executable form. In the executable form, again, we need a application to do this work. So we have build tools. So build tool, the job of the build tool are basically convert source code into the executable form. So source code is kept my repository. So get the code from the repository and convert it into a executable form is the job of the build tool. That is called build process, conversion of source code into the executable form. And we have tools like Maven, Gradle, Jenkins, and we have n number of tools. If you will go over the internet, you will find yourself n number of tools people are working. Somebody is using Maven, somebody is using Gradle, somebody is using Jenkins. Okay, now there is a question to understand. For example, you are working for a company A. You are working for a company A. Company A says, I am going to use the GitHub to maintain my repository, and I am going to use the Maven to build my tool. To build my application from source code to executable form of the, sorry, executable form of the tool, right? So you are working in a company A, you learn how to work on a GitHub, you learn how to work on a Maven. So you know if a source code is going to come into the GitHub, how you can convert your source code into the executable form by using the tool called Maven. Now you switch into the another company, you switch your job and you go into the another company, company B. Company B says, no, 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 I don't work on the GitHub. I work on the Bitbucket, which means I maintain my repository on a Bitbucket, and I don't use Maven. I'm going to use the Gradle for the build process. So Gradle is again a tool to convert your source code into the executable form of the code, executable form of the application. So again you will say, I need to learn the Bitbucket, and again you need to learn the Gradle. Let's say you again go into the company C. Company C says, no, 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 boss, I don't use GitHub, I don't use Bitbucket, I use the Azure repo, and I use the Jenkins. Again, it will be a problem. So, see, this is the challenge with the open source DevOps, because every company in the entire world is independent to choose whatever the product they want to choose. They can choose n number of products to maintain their repository. They can choose n number of products to build their tool. So this is how the challenge is, which we always see on the internet also. So when you will go to the internet and you will say the tools to be used in simple, if I open the internet, let me show you guys. Tools used in DevOps. So you can see here multiple tools are given here, and everybody is going to get, somebody is learning Gradle, somebody is learning Terraform, somebody is learning Ansible, somebody is learning Jenkins, somebody is learning Puppet. And every time you will always get into this problem, like you learned one tool and you go to the another organization, or even the same organization decided, no, no, let's discontinue the GitHub, start something else, then again it will be a problem. But this is how the DevOps. So DevOps is not about selecting and learning one tool. You can have n number of combination, you can use it. So somebody can use GitHub, Maven, and Jenkins to deploy to build their pipeline. Somebody can use Azure repo, Gradle, Jenkins. Somebody can use Azure repo, Maven, Jenkins. Somebody can use Bitbucket, Maven, TeamCity, something like that. So n number of combination can be made, and it all depends on the organization to organization. And in a very practical situation, I'm telling you, it is simply not possible for all of us to learn all the tools. Nobody is the master of all these tools. Nobody. Of course you can have basic idea, there is no, I am not questioning that part, but nobody. And these are just the the number of tools which are very popular. There other than there are 10 more times tools are available in the market. Every time you will open the internet, every time you will open the LinkedIn page, somebody is building something else. So DevOps is a very nice playground where you can have your own set of tools, and you can do whatever you want to do. That's not an issue. But again, it is up to us which path we are going to choose. That's point number one. Now coming back to, I have converted my application to the executable form. Again, I need to create a release pipeline where I am going to choose the target environment. And in the target environment, since again we have VM, Docker, AKS, AWS VM, EKS, GK, and n number of target environment as well. And for in all of us, it is also not possible to learn all these environments as well. You can either learn on Azure virtual machine or Docker or AKS. Of course you can learn, I'm not questioning anybody's capability, but it is pretty much impractical to learn and be the master of all of these things at one time. Of course, if you start working in AKS today, and if you keep working in the AKS for next 3 months, for next 6 months, of course you will be the master of the AKS. But once you leave the AKS and start working on the GKE, and then you need to spend at least 6 months on the GKE to become a master of the GKE, and then you will forget the AKS environment. So again, I would like to draw your attention on the basics. The basics are, we have the source code written by the developers. It is going into the repository. So as a DevOps admin, I'm supposed to learn at least one source code version system. Then how to build my repository into the executable form. As a DevOps admin, I'm supposed to learn one build tool so that I can convert the source code into the executable form. As a DevOps admin, I'm supposed to learn one release tool so that I can set the target, and I can get the executable form of the application into the release pipeline. As a DevOps admin, I'm supposed to learn at least one or two target environment, whether it is a VM, Docker, AKS, AWS, EKS, GK, whatever. At least one or two target environment, right? Now, This is called open source DevOps, which where anybody is free to choose whatever they want to use, right? Now, the Microsoft has come up with another set of tools, and they are calling it a Azure DevOps. And Microsoft says you don't need to learn a lot of multiple tools. You don't need to do a lot of other, choose multiple accommodation and combination of these tools. Come to my place, which is the Azure DevOps. Here, I'm going to give you Azure Repo. Azure Repo is going to, work as a repository, which means if you are a developer, I can simply put my entire source code in Azure Repo. Then Microsoft Azure DevOps is going to say like Azure Build Pipeline. You do not need to learn Maven, Gradle, Jenkins, and number of other different tools. Of course, you can learn; it's your choice. But Azure Build Pipeline say no matter what source code you have, I am going to help you with the Azure Build Pipeline. I'm going to help if you need to, if you learn the Azure Build Pipeline, then you are learning how to convert your source code which is kept in the Azure repo into an executable form. And then Azure says I'm also going to give you one tool which is called Release Pipeline, and the name of the tool is called Azure Release Pipeline. The name of the tool is called Azure Build Pipeline. The name of the tool is called Azure Repo. So you can see all these different stages are basically combined in one tool. So if I learn the Azure DevOps, I'm going to learn Azure Repo, I'm going to learn Azure Build Pipeline, I'm going to learn Azure Release Pipeline, and some other tools as well, right? So if I'm going to learn Azure DevOps, I'm going to learn these are the tools. And these are the tools, once you learn it, you do not have to go here, there, here and there. If you can put in your resume, like I know Azure DevOps. If somebody asks you, okay, do you know Jenkins? No, you can simply say, no, I don't know Jenkins. I mean, if you know, it's fine, but I know Azure DevOps. I know how the source code it needs to be kept in the repo. I know how the source code is going to convert into the build pipeline, how to create a release pipeline. I know all these things. If you know all these things, then no matter which tool you are using, you will be able to simply execute or work as a DevOps admin. Oh, sorry, DevOps engineer. Okay. Now the next thing. So this part, the first part is basically going to deal with the development part. Then we have an operation part. In the operation part, we have to choose our target environment. So in this training, we are going to learn the Azure Repo Build Pipeline, and I'm just giving you overall situation. Majorly, our focus will to learn this, like how with the help of tools given by Azure DevOps, we can kept our source code into the repository, how we can get the source code from the repository to build the tool of the executable form of that application, then how to release it. All these things we are going to learn in this course. Plus, as I told you, like we have multiple environments. So somebody in one organization, somebody says, no, I am simply going to use the virtual machine for all the for the deployment of my application. Somebody says, no, I don't want to use the VM. I am going to use the Docker. Somebody says, no, I don't want to use the Docker. I'm going to use the AKS. Somebody says, no, I have the AWS environment. Of course, the target environment is again up to the company to company. Like in one company, somebody may be using the Azure, some in another company, somebody may be using the AWS, in another company, somebody may be using the Google. So if you would like to learn, you can learn, there is no problem. Okay, I'm not saying, I'm not against all that. But in this training, our focus is going to deploy the application on Azure VM as well as Azure App Service. Azure App Service is also a target environment. We are not using the Docker and AKS for this training. And why we are not using the Docker and AKS? Because Docker and AKS is itself a very long training, and they have their own complex infrastructure. So if I talk about the Docker or if I talk about the AKS, these are the microservices. They require a dedicated learning. Nobody can tell you simply like, okay, let me teach you Docker in 2 weeks, or let me teach you AKS in 1 week. I'm simply telling you, nobody can do that. AKS, if you'll go to the Kubernetes service, if you really would like to be a good a good engineer who learns, who knows AKS, it requires minimum of at least 2 to 3 months of training, only training. And then you need to go and do your work on the AKS. So AKS is itself a very complex infrastructure, AKS Docker both, because they belongs to the containerization module, and this requires a separate training. So that is why we are not clubbing this into the Azure DevOps. Otherwise, we have seen in the past, it basically gets very confusing for a lot of people. They always get, keep a struggle like whether they should learn, they should focus on the AKS or whether they should focus on Azure DevOps. So that is why we are not covering the AKS and Docker. If you would like to do the AKS and Docker, you need to go through, in my opinion, in my experience, I'm simply telling you, you need to learn AKS separately. And then of course, if you will know all the Azure DevOps pipeline, then you simply need to deploy your application on AKS. Then it will be a meaningful and sense, it makes sense for all of us to do the deployment on the AKS. Otherwise, if you will ask me to show you how to deploy the application on AKS, I can show you, there is no problem. But if you don't know how the pod works, how the replica set works, how the deployment works, how the stateful set works, how the daemon set works, what is the concept of the network policy, what is the concept of the pod, stateful application and stateless application, then there is no point to view the deployment of the application, because nobody is going to give you the AKS, in no matter in which organization you are going to work. Nobody is going to hand you over the AKS, because AKS is a very fragile environment and it is a very sensitive environment as of now. Because it is still, I would say, AKS is in the initial days. There are a lot of developments going around the AKS and Docker. So of course, if you know Docker and AKS, if you learn Docker and AKS separately, and then you will come back to this training, it is more than it will be a more than sufficient. So that is why in this training we are going to learn the concept of Azure DevOps, and then we are going to see how we can, with this options, we how we can deploy the tools on the Azure VM and Azure App Service. Before that, of course, I'm going to teach you the Azure VM and Azure App Service. So that is how we are going to do that. Now coming back to the content of the course. So see, first we are going to discuss the Azure fundamental, of course, because this is important. Then I'm going to teach you the Azure networking concept, because this is our Azure DevOps course, so we need to learn the Azure networking. And again, if I go back to the picture, Azure app and Azure VM and Azure App Service. All these modules which I'm talking about basically belongs to, we need to learn about the Azure VM. We need to learn these to learn about the Azure App Service. Then we are simply going to learn about the storage account, and then we are going to detail of the virtual machine. And then later we are going to talk about the Azure App Service. This is the same thing which I told you, right? So till this point we are going to learn the basics of the Azure in the till modules 5. We are going to spend the time to learn about the Azure VM, because it is important, and Azure App Service, so that when at the end of the DevOps, when I'm going to deploy the application on an Azure VM or on an Azure App Service, you should not be you should not be getting confused. If we have that option like Docker and AKS, then again it should be, we need to learn before learning the Azure DevOps, the Docker or the AKS or the virtual machine or the Azure App Service. So the knowledge of the target environment is the first thing we need to get if I would like to be a good DevOps engineer. Then I'm going to this option, ARM and the Terraform. So we are going to have a basics of ARM template and the Terraform. And here also, I'm simply going to learn how to deploy my virtual machine. So till this point, we have learned about the Instagram application. But let's say tomorrow, organization says, I don't want to create Azure app, infrastructure in advance. I would like to create the infrastructure with this pipeline itself. Then that is the part we are going to learn in this module, ARM template, and how to deploy your Azure virtual machine, or how to deploy your Azure app service with the help of ARM template and the Terraform. And if I simply put this Docker and AKS, so instead of virtual machine and Azure app service, I can add two more modules like Docker and the AKS. But those two modules are again more than 2 months or 3 months of training. So that is why we have not added it here. Now coming back to my Azure DevOps. So from module 9, we are going to start the concept of Azure DevOps. Till module 8, we need to learn all the prerequisites which we are going to use inside our Azure DevOps. Then we are going to discuss about the Azure DevOps, like what are the different options, how to manage the DevOps portal and everything. Then we are going to learn about the Azure boards. It is again a planning tool. It's not a technical tool. Azure boards is just a whiteboard which we are basically used to do the plan and track the progress of our application deployment. Then we have we are going to learn the version control system, Git, GitHub, and Azure repos. So if I'll come back here, then this part we are going to learn in the. So in this training, I have not included only Azure repo. I have also included Git and GitHub, because Git and GitHub is a very popular along with the Azure repo. So that is why I have mentioned Git, GitHub, and Azure repo. We are going to learn that. Next, we need to learn the build, how to build my source code into the executable form of. So that is why we are calling it as a continuous integration, and we are going to learn the tool called Azure Pipeline. Then after the build, we are need to learn the release pipeline, Azure Pipeline with the help of continuous delivery. So we are going to learn about this. And finally, we are going to see from the YAML perspective, because this is a very demand from the interviewer. Like if you are a DevOps admin, then you must need to learn the YAML, learn how to write the YAML pipeline. They will simply ask you, do you know how to write a YAML pipeline to deploy the application by using the Azure DevOps? So what is YAML pipeline? YAML pipeline is actually nothing. YAML pipeline is, if I go here, from here till here, whatever is happening, we are simply going to write all the steps in one file, which is called YAML file, and they are calling it as a YAML pipeline. So which means if you know how to write a YAML pipeline, I'm simply telling you, if you know how to write a YAML pipeline, then no matter which tool you are using here, all these tools basically works at the backend over the YAML pipeline. So if you know how to write a YAML pipeline, and YAML pipeline is all about knowing how to get your source code, from where you are going to get your source code, from where you are going to do your build, and from where you are going to release. So putting everything in one file, like to get the resource code, to then use the option to build the tool, and then use the option to release it. Everything is called YAML pipeline, and this is actually the advanced and the final version of the DevOps, not just Azure DevOps, of any DevOps. We need to learn the tools, different tools, and then we need to learn how to write the code for all these tools in one pipeline or in one file, which is called YAML file, and then directly deploy my YAML file or into the production. That is how we are going to learn here in the YAML file, and that's how we are going to complete our course. So now, anybody has any query and question, then you are more than welcome to ask.
Yes, sir. Actually, are you going to cover Kubernetes with
No,
Azure DevOps?
that's a separate training.
Okay.
So if you see, we have two different DevOps. One DevOps with Azure VM and Azure App Service, as I told you, and one with the AKS with Azure DevOps. Because to make if you do, you know AKS, how to work on the AKS? Who was asking?
So, a case with Azure DevOps, how many classes it will take? Like how many duration?
See, if you will, so that's a separate training. First thing, as of now, I mean, my laptop is actually not is crashed now, so I am just working on a secondary laptop. So I can share the content for AKS with Azure DevOps, but to learn the AKS, you need at least 1.5 months, only AKS. And then to learn the Azure DevOps, you need another 1.5 months. So somewhere around 3 months or 3.5 months, we need to learn Azure DevOps with AKS. But in that case, I am not. I mean, we are not covering this part. The Azure App Service or the Azure VM. These are the things we are not covering. The ARM we are not covering. Then virtual machine and Azure App Service we are not covering. We are simply start our course from AKS. We'll go through the AKS and then we'll jump to the Azure DevOps.
So if you are covering, if you are going through Azure VM,
Uh,
so it will contain Azure DevOps and Terraform infrastructure as services.
yes, yes. We will.
Y-
I'll explain you the Terraform. Yes.
So if you are going for AKS Azure DevOps, then it will completely Kubernetes with the Azure DevOps.
Yes, yes. Kubernetes.
Okay,
So
okay.
first we will spend a good number of time with AKS because honestly, if you have not worked in the AKS, then because I work on the AKS. So AKS is itself an entire whole infrastructure. So we need to learn. We need to spend good time in AKS. Otherwise, there is no point of learning Azure DevOps. For me,
So
it's a
Azure
simple.
DevOps with VM, like infrastructure as services, Terraform, you are going to cover. So
Yes.
how many days it will take duration?
If you talk about, then it should take somewhere around 2 months.
Okay. Okay, so they told like the 45 days. That's why I just asked.
See, that's what I'm see the 45 days. But see, sometimes what happens, let's say we have 4 or 5 people are studying together. Sometimes 1 or 2 people are not present, and I'm basically, teaching you a very important concept where I need, everyone to be in the class. So sometimes we postpone some classes. Sometimes, let's say I am not available. Maybe I fell, sick, or maybe I have to travel somewhere, or maybe some of you have to do some work. So once the batch is finalized, okay, then we all discuss 4 5 people. And why I'm saying this 2 months, because some topics need revision also. Let's say I explained you about the Azure App Service, but at the very first class, you are a lot of people are not able to understand. Then we will go and repeat the Azure App Service again, and we'll discuss with some different examples as well. So that is why 15 days is something you need to add it in any day. Whatever the number of training days you have to given, 15 20 days is something you need to add it. It might be possible if we are on a very good pace, then of course it is going to be complete in 45 days. But again, just keep 15 days in hand as a reserve.
Yeah, so Azure with VM, Azure App Services,
Yeah.
if somebody want, they can attend that class. Otherwise, Azure DevOps with Docker and AKS, that
Huh.
is different batch.
Yes. If you need, then it's a different training. Yes. Actually, I can show you the content, but as of now, this content is file is not in this laptop. So otherwise, I would have
Okay, okay.
shown it.
Basically, in institute they told like that Azure DevOps only. So Azure DevSecops they told like that's why I was a bit confused. I need to attend the demo, then I can clear the doubt.
Yeah. See, you can call whatever, but as I told you, like before, see, Azure DevOps is something, it's just a way to deploy something. But we also need to learn the target environment. Otherwise, let's say you don't know about Azure VM or Azure App Service or AKS, then how are you going to work as a DevOps administrator, a DevOps engineer? So that is why we have included these things as well. If you only focus on Azure DevOps, then it's hardly a 30 days of training where I need to teach you all these things. It's hardly a, but since we believe like the training should be in a way like you should be able to work in an organization when you appear for the interview, then at least you should be sounded like yes, you know how the things are working in the organization.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else would like to discuss anything, guys? Okay, then I believe we are good to wrap up the session for today. And based on your interest and feedback, we'll see how if when we are going to start the batch. Okay, so you can share your detail to the visual path. They will connect to you, and if anybody would like to discuss anything whatever we have discussed in this session, then you are more than welcome. Otherwise, we are good to wrap up the session for today. Okay, thank you guys, thank you everyone. See you again. Bye bye.